it's Carly.
Hey, it's Shamina, and we're emotionful.
Blah, 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 blah. So today we're gonna talk about my upbringing and perspective on religion and spirituality. And then, we'll obviously broaden out from there as we always do. And yeah,
So let's get emotionful.
let's get emotionful. Okay.
So last episode, you heard about my intuitive reading experience, my kind of like spiritual journey, upbringing with like religion, spirituality, all of that fun stuff. So Carly has a very different upbringing with all of these topics. So we as in me and some of our viewers, wanted to hear the juxtaposition of Carly's experience with religion.
Yeah, and I know that I tapped on it a little bit when Shamina was telling her story. Um, but pretty much, so from kindergarten to 8th grade, I went to Catholic school. And I know that I said
You know Carly though, then you hear that. I remember the first time she ever told me that, I was like, you're joking. Like, this is not, no.
It's funny because I was gonna say that a lot of people are like, no, you didn't. And I'm like, yeah, I did. And I did, and my brothers did, we all did from kindergarten to 8th grade. And when I was in middle school, they opened up a Catholic high school. And I remember like, oh, mom, are you going to make us go to the Catholic high school? And my mom was always like, if you didn't get that all instilled in you in those 9 years, you don't. So we went to public high school. But
so, hold up. What was that transition like? Because obviously our high school is
I loved it.
cool. And so like how did that go? Because I even remember like watching your senior year video and you coming in as a freshman and like the way that you dressed, and Carly had a tank top that was up to her collarbone. And then senior year, you can't even see.
Okay. Well, I didn't wear tank tops underneath senior year. The reason why I had the tank top was because when I was going in to be a freshman, my brother was going to be a senior, and I didn't know. I was nervous. I was like, oh my God, what do I wear? And like, you got to follow the rules. And he was like, he told me, he was like, you can't. So that's why I was like, I have to make sure it touches my collarbone. But so I was like fascinated with the public school. I was like, oh my God. I can still remember some things of like, and I was like, oh my God, that girl has blue hair. Cause like at my Catholic school, like we had a uniform. It was very strict. We went to church every Friday. We had religion class like every day or once a week. I can't remember exactly, but we had religion class. And I remember one time I got detention and it was writing verses of the Bible, and the nun was the person who directed the detention, at least for me at that time. And the principal was a nun. But pretty much I feel like for me, because I don't really practice, my mom still is very strong in her Catholic faith, and we'll go to church with her like for the holidays and stuff, but I don't like continue to practice. And for me, well, you asked me about the transition. Let me talk about the transition. And then, so it was just very like mind blowing, I guess. And like, open minded. Like, I was just like, oh my gosh. But like, I was so like embracing it of like, this is so awesome. Because, so that's why I started talking about that. My Catholic school had like a lot of rules. And I remember when you got into 8th grade, it was like the last like week or so before graduating, there were certain things you could do. Like you could paint your fingernails because you weren't allowed to wear makeup, paint your fingernails. So like some like little, we were allowed to wear like dangly earrings and stuff, like things like that were like special privileged for 8th graders as they were getting ready to graduate. So then like going into high school, a public high school, and seeing like people having facial piercings and blue hair, and I was like, what the heck is this? But like in the best way. um so my journey though, I remember in even in high school, my mom, at that time we still had to go to church every Sunday, and my mom would pretty much be like, you can't hang out with your friends if you don't go to church. So it was like a, I just always felt like the religion, and not in a negative way, but was like pushed onto me. And so then when I got to that point of being able to be free, I realized like it's really ultimately like, are you a good person? Like I think for me that's what it comes down to, because not everyone is like this, but I feel like a lot of people who are super strong in their religion are almost like very pushy. Like they're very like judgy, and they push it on you. And if you don't have the same faith as them, then it's like, oh my gosh, like, and not everyone is like that, but I've experienced that. And so for me, it was just such a negative experience that it made me leave the religion, in the sense of like, I think it shouldn't matter what faith I am or anything like that, as long as I'm a good person and I'm doing good. Because then I think I said in the last episode, or whatever episode it was, of there are some people who claim to be so religious and following God and stuff, but then they're so judgy and mean, and they do these nasty, horrible things. And it's like, that's not, just because you say you're religious, but then you do all these other things, that doesn't make you a good person. So,
I feel like we, as you were talking, I think we see more of the like pushiness in the Western religions than we do
mhm.
more of like an Eastern religion. And like you said, it's not like every single person, but it seems more with like the Western religions that there are some people who do follow them that are more like, it's my way or the highway, or like, how could you not believe in X, Y, or Z, but more of like the Eastern religions. I don't think I've ever experienced somebody who believes in an Eastern religion and is like, this is how it is and how you need to be and how you need to believe. It's just like, oh, okay.
Yeah, and I think that I've always just felt like some slightness of judgment, whether it was noticeable or not, by someone when I say like that I don't really practice, or because I would say that I identify myself as agnostic right now. So I think, I believe in something. I believe in a higher power. I believe, like, my grandparents have passed away, and I believe that they're like looking down on me. So there are certain things that I have faith in. Um, but I just sometimes I'm like, "Ooh," when it comes down to like certain things, because it's, I don't I don't know. Like, I have nothing against anyone who practices, as long as you are continuing to be a good person and you don't just use your religion as like your means to being able to do all these other things, but you're a religious person, but you steal or you cheat or you lie. And it's like,
Well, that's the justification. Is like, well,
yeah.
I'm blank. And so
Hmm.
that like makes it okay.
Hmm. And I will say another thing is like, some people, and this is like what irks me, is like, I've met people who are like, they follow the Bible, but then they'll do other things, and it's like, okay, well, you're not supposed to have sex before marriage in the Bible, and you're not supposed to do this, and you're not supposed, like, certain things, but you're doing that, but then you don't believe in a person being gay because that's not acceptable in the Bible, but you're out here drinking a crazy amount and you're having sex before marriage. And so if you find your wife cheating on you, are you going to stone her? You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, like
so it's like,
cherry picking.
yeah, exactly. And that, I don't like that at all, because that just is just like, oh, like you're putting judgment onto someone because they don't believe in your beliefs, but you're not even practicing. Like, if you're going to do that, you need to do it for everything,
Right,
which
like,
obviously that's unrealistic. Like, certain things you can't do. You can't freaking stone your wife. Like, so, um,
so what you're saying then is that because of the like interactions or the judgment that you felt like within the community, that propelled you to kind of gravitate away from like organized religion.
yeah, I would say so. And like also a lot of like my close friends are part of the LGBTQ community. And just like it would really break my heart when like their family wouldn't accept them or friends wouldn't accept them, or like they'd be like, I'll be nice to them, but I don't accept their way of life. And I just want to be like, they're not choosing this life. It's not like they're choosing, like, do you think with the amount of bullying that like the LGBTQ community gets, they're going to choose that and choose, like this is who they are? And so like the biggest thing with me and like that is, how the Bible doesn't accept it, but it's like that's so ridiculous. So ridiculous. So yeah, I don't know. Again, I my mom's very faith-based. She goes every Sunday, and I think that's awesome, and I'm glad that she has that, and that's what works for her. But I think for me, I think as long as my biggest thing is like, if you are a good person, it shouldn't matter what your beliefs are if they don't harm anybody else. If you believe that this rock here is going to tell you what's going to happen tomorrow, but who cares? Like, who is it for this person over there to come be like, no, that's not true? Like, is this person doing any harm to you? Are they being a good person? So let them have that belief, so anyways, it's, yeah. And I will say too, like my ex was religious-ish. Like he was kind of like me, I guess. He grew up, but he grew up in like a Jehovah Witness slash Baptist, I think. Maybe I'm wrong on the Baptist, but I know Jehovah Witness was one of them. And Jehovah Witness are very, very follow the Bible, I believe. I don't know, so I could be wrong. I don't want to, but I know for him, like not celebrating holidays and things like that, where I it was always difficult for me, and like I don't want to be like a hypocrite, but like one thing that I learned with my therapist is like there are certain core values of mine that I can't lose those for my partner, in the sense. And like for me, I enjoy celebrating holidays. I love getting together, and like he would always be like, yeah, but what are you celebrating? Like, because I guess Jesus wasn't born in December or on Christmas. I don't know. But to me, it was more of like, no, like for me, it's the family time, like, and it's the getting together and that closeness and having that. And then like birthdays, I like my birthday, bro. I want to celebrate my birthday, So I realized like we really had an imbalance there, because I wanted to respect him and not, but I also want a partner I want a partner to be with me when I'm celebrating my birthday and the holidays. And I always just felt like there was this disconnect of like, yeah, he was doing it, but it was like that awkward, like he wasn't comfortable doing it. And then I felt awkward because I knew he wasn't comfortable doing it. And it was just like this, like it didn't smooth flow. It was like a clunky, like, so, but
I didn't like, I knew that, but I also was just, I didn't attribute it to like religion. I was just like, oh, he just doesn't like celebrate like holidays or birthdays. I don't think I attributed that to like the spirituality of it. So when you guys first got together, like how did you navigate or like have that conversation of like, hey, like birthdays and holidays, those are like big things in my family, and you're obviously very close to your family, and so it's not just like oh, we get together for like an hour, have dinner, and then go home. Like it's a whole event when you guys have like a birthday or a holiday.
yeah, no, we didn't. Well, that's the thing, and that's why I think it lasted as long as it did, is because we didn't navigate it. Like in the very beginning, I was just so consumed with like having somebody that I almost stopped my, like, I downplayed my family togetherness and events and stuff for him. So like sometimes, like, it's a big deal on our birthdays that like whoever birthday it is, they get to choose where they want to go out to eat. And like, even as I'm the youngest and I'm 27, to this day, we still do this with my brother who is 33, and my brother who is 33 lives like 2 hours from my parents. And some days they'll drive to my brother just to have dinner with him and drive back home that night. Like, it's a thing in our family. And I remember like when we first started like seeing each other, I would downplay and be like, oh, we don't need to get together for my birthday. And it was like, it was kind of like, damn, no, and so I would put it off, or I'd make it like not that big of a deal. Look, because it was like, I'm like, but I would make it be like, oh, it's not that big of a deal, but it was, but I tried to downplay it. And then, so like, I think as it went on, I was like, I can't keep downplaying this because I like to celebrate my birthday. I like spending time with my family. And then I think that's where like the disconnect started happening, and it being more aware, because he was, when he was raised, I guess at some point when they practiced Jehovah Witness, that's like what stuck. And like his dad doesn't really celebrate holidays or birthdays, like to the point to where like around the holidays, if I made like Christmas cookies and stuff, I wanted to share, it was like, well, don't say it's like for the holiday, just say you made cookies. And I was like, oh, okay, and so like I don't think I realized how much I was like, but I mean, now I do. But yeah, so like certain things like that. And when we first met, he claimed that like every Wednesday or whatever day it was, he had like Bible study. And he would like, and then I think like towards like the end, and I don't know if maybe me not practicing any type of religion maybe kind of wore off on him too, because when we were together, he didn't really practice. Like sometimes he would go to service with his dad, um, but not a lot. And but when we first met, he was like, oh yeah, I have Bible study from like 6 to 8, and he would like read the Bible, or like he said like he would like to wake up early and read the Bible. And I never, even when I was in Catholic school, like I read the Bible when I had to, if I was like in detention or it was an assignment, like I don't think I've ever read the Bible. So
like voluntarily.
Mm-hmm. And even to this day, like if you say if it's not like Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John or something like that, I'm like, I don't know, so I was never like very invested. I mean, I've gotten like my baptism, first communion, confirmation. I think that's it. But I have all that done. I can, get the Eucharist at church, I'm pretty sure. I know I can, I just, the body and blood. But I think from my experience, like as a kid, I just think who I am too is like, if I ever have children, whether it's adoption, whatever route I choose, I want my kid to the feel like they can explore, whether it's like, hey, I do want to go to like, and I remember that was one conversation. Oh, and that was a conversation we had towards the end of like, if we had kids, how are we gonna, because he pretty much was saying like his kids would go to Sunday school. And I was like, if my kid doesn't want to go, I'm not going to force them. Like, if they want to practice another religion, I want them to know that they can, they don't have to do this. Cause to me, that's not what good is it to force your kid to practice something that they're not interested in? They're just gonna start to raise resentment towards you or the religion. Like, what good does that do? It's not doing anything. Let them choose something that they genuinely want to learn and practice, and then I think it goes from there. Like, obviously you want to guide your children a bit, and like that was another thing that we like didn't really agree on, and because he was like, the point of being parents is to like guide your kids in the right direction. But in the way that I think is, who am I to tell my kid what the right direction is? Like, obviously I don't want my kids stealing and doing things like that. So I feel like as a parent, like that's my goal, is to not let them steal or cheat or be a bad human or do bad unto others. But who am I to tell them that Catholicism is the right direction or Buddhism is the right direction? Or that's for them to choose. And yeah, when they're younger, they may not know, but that's the joy of exploring, like give them a few different books. Like maybe I would buy a Catholic book, a Buddhist book or whatever, and let them like kind of feel it out or something. But I just realized, like, for me, like some of my core values is like family time and like um religion, in the sense of, I believe that religion is not a huge thing for me as long as you're a good person. Like that's my faith. My faith is to be a good person and be good unto others. And so I feel like in there we had the really big disconnect. And like he was like close with his family to an extent, but like I would see my family like every other weekend, and he would like occasionally maybe like stop at his dad's, or like I talk to my mom every day. He would go days without talking to either of his parents, and to me that's like, whoa. And then religion, we just because I remember towards the end I was like, what if we had kids together? Like, how we can't even agree on, so.
Definitely. And I think what you had said of like, we're supposed to like guide our children in the right direction, but like what you were talking about, it seems like is we instill like the core values of, like being a good person, not doing this, not doing that, like the kind of like ethical guidelines that we want our children to abide by. And then everything else is like fair game. Like yeah, like you figure it out. And I think that's something that I wish I would have had, is like more exploration or just being like educated on other religions, because my father was Buddhist. And so when we were, I don't even know if I was born yet. I was either born or like under the age of 4. And I know that that was something that they practiced because I see pictures of like different things like that. And my mom would kind of teach me about like some of those things when I was very, very, very young. But once they got divorced, that was like gone. And so it was just like, well, what else is there? Like I had no idea. Like as you were talking about the communion, whatever I have no idea what those things are. Or even like the thing you're like, yeah, I can like get the thing in church. I'm like, I don't even know what that is. And like obviously now as an adult, I can take that initiative and do the research and like figure that stuff out on my own. But I wish when I was younger, I was taught. I remember in college, not in college, we were in high school at the time, and I took college classes. I took an intro to religion and a world religion class. And those were super interesting because they were all the Eastern and the Western religions. And I found that like super cool. And even in college, I took a Buddhism class, like an intro to Buddhism class. And like one of our assignments was like to go to a Buddhist temple and like meditate. And I was like, oh my God, I don't know what that is. But like that was super cool to like learn about different cultures. Or like going to, like when I went to college and we went to like a Roman Catholic like church service, like doing those things was like super interesting, because it's like, oh, like I can identify with this, or like this doesn't feel right for me, and this doesn't fit for me. But I think we live in a culture where we like generationally just pass everything down, whether it's religion, whether it's our beliefs, whether it's our values. And I think we're starting to break away with that with like the millennials. And are Gen Z's even old enough to have kids yet?
Probably. You can have a kid whenever you have your period, so.
That's true. Aren't they like 2000s? So they're like 21.
Yeah, bro, they can drink, they can have kids.
What? I guess they can have kids. Like I think with the younger generations, that blows my mind. How are they 21?
I know
that we're starting to like expand, but also I think we're seeing like a significant decline in religion with the millennial generation and the Gen Zers, because it's been like force fed. for so long, and so we're trying to like change things and shake things up.
And I think it's because I will say in college, maybe after, I think it was after undergrad, I did get really into a non-denominational church. And I think I really resonated with it because it was like he would have Bible verses at the mass, and then they would just talk about how, this Bible, it pretty much was just going back to like what I said of like being a good person. Like it was never like certain things, and it was just like a really cool, like upbeat, and it was never like, it didn't come off as judgy to me, but it was more of like, hey, there's this Bible verse in the Bible, and from what it's saying, it's like, be a good person. And like that's why I really liked it, because it wasn't like any specific, it was just non-denominational. But then I kind of fell off and stopped going to that too. But again, I would say that I have a faith base. I would not be able to pinpoint exactly what it is.
I think
But
it's like it's more like integrative and like picking like, yeah, like I like this and this feels right
mhm,
for me, and it's not like this specific like organized religion,
mhm,
but more of like, I believe in like this energy, or what
mhm,
have you. Like I was just talking to a client today about like the full moon that happened on Friday, and they were
mhm.
like, do you believe in that stuff, and all of this kind of stuff, and I
Depends on my mood.
um, and so I was saying, like the full moon impacts our oceans and our tides and nature in itself. So who am I to say that it may not impact our own energies and our mood? And they were like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so I think it's more like integrative of like, I like this perspective of it, or the theme of this like Bible verse or what have you is something that I really connect with to like my core values. And so it's less about like organized religion and more about, I don't know, sense of self.
Well, I think you worded it very well of like, and because I feel like me and you kind of feel the same way in this, but you worded it very well. And like, who am I who am I to say, yes, this does impact you? Because maybe it does impact some people. Like, you know, this is like totally off topic, but like when we get our period, some people it doesn't affect them at all. But for me, like I can start to tell like a week before, because I can tell like emotionally and mentally, I just feel off. Like it's just a little bit, but I'm like, oh, I feel off. And then like, it'll happen like around a week. And then a week later, I'm like, oh, I got my period, duh. But like some people, it doesn't affect them at all. So I think, again, who am I to say that, yes, it does have, or it doesn't, but I mean, I had a crazy dream Friday night. So maybe that had something to do with it. I don't know.
And I think, religion, I think from I talk about like the historical perspective a lot in our podcast. I've noticed that, or like a societal, like historical thing.
Facts.
Yeah.
Facts.
But I think historically, like religion has been a sense of community. And,
Mhm.
that was a way that we like connected, like in all of the old timey movies, you always see like the very first thing they do is like going to church and meeting the community within like church or something like that. And so,
Mhm.
in this day and age, like people attend church virtually. And,
Yeah.
like with the pandemic, they had to adapt to that a lot. And so I think it does I think the representation of religion has changed from when it's like inception.
Yeah, and I also what I was gonna I agree with that, but then when you said community, 100%, but I think people are finding community within other things, like
Yeah.
whether it be their hobbies, their passions. But I will say that like I have several friends who later maybe they weren't religious, or maybe they were, and then they explored or whatever, and then they found religion on their own. And I think that that's, as long as you find it on your own, I think that's what's super like awesome, and in being at this age of kind of having the ability to explore. But when it comes down to it, I think at the end of the day, I if I have a kid, I want them to be able to explore anything, whether it's religion, and I talk about this all the time, careers. I feel like for 18 years of our lives, we're pretty much told, you know, in school, like, you need to take these classes, you need to take these classes. And then you go to college, if people go to college, and if you don't, you're still forced to choose something. So whether you don't go to college and you're just forced to choose a career, or you do go to college and you're forced to choose a major to then have a career, and it's like, where is this opportunity to explore? Like, yeah, in school you learn a little bit about it, but like, I'm like a hands-on person. So I feel like they should have like a program or something where, like, for a week, like, it's a year long, and for a week you try something new and you stick to it for a week to get a good idea of how it goes, and then the next week it's a new and it should be like the non-conventional careers, because like, every, you know, like, people know about the I want to know about a career that's like, I've never, you know, so many careers out there that I've never even heard of, and I'm like, that's a freaking job. And it's just like, I wish I would have known about these things, like, before I went and got my master's and have this much school debt, and now I don't know what the freak I want to do with my life. So anyways, but we're talking about religion, so but
Thank you for
anyways,
coming to Karlie's TED Talk.
but I think it all comes together at the end of the day. At the end of the day, whatever gets you going and helps you move forward, because for me, I believe it's in like, I don't know how to explain it, but for me, it's almost like this healing journey that I'm on is almost a faith in itself, of like, believing in yourself that you know, you sent me that thing of like, it'll hurt and hurt and hurt and hurt, and one day it'll feel better. And it's like, I truly believe that it will get better, but you have to go through all of these like bumps in the road, and it's gonna take time. But I think, like, for me, my faith is in myself right now, you know, like, I have this like growing that I need to do, and some days it freaking sucks because I'm just like a potato and I don't want to do anything. But then some days when I see my progress, and even now, like, I'm sure I've said this a million times, but even now when I look back, I'm like, okay, I know I'm progressing. It's just, it's gonna take time, you know, at the end of the day, it's just time. So
I agree. And I think we go through these moments in our lives that challenge our sense of self and our identity and who we are, who we thought we wanted to be. And
mhm.
you know, I think about the bright-eyed, bushy-tail 18-year-old version of me who graduated high school. I was like, I'm getting married at 22 and having kids at 24. I'm doing all of these things, you know, and I'm very like hyper focused on the traditional milestones in life. And then like, here I am, unmarried, don't have any kids. I got enough animals. I don't need no kids. And so, but these,
Real quick.
when,
Okay.
but
Okay.
these, I'm speaking. Um,
Yes, queen.
but those moments, whether it's like a breakup or a loss or not getting the job or what have you, it causes us to turn inward and to evaluate our values. And is this the path I wanted to be on, or is this the path I thought I needed to be on in order to be whatever, successful, accepted, whatever, loved, whatever that kind of phrase is. And so I think, you know, you put it really great of how this in and of itself was like a spiritual journey for you of like finding who you are and what you want to do and what brings you fulfillment. And I think during these times is also when a lot of people who are like independent thinkers go towards religion, because that is something that they do feel connected to, and they're, you know, wanting to believe in something greater than themselves.
Mhm. Well, what I was gonna say, and that I agree with you, is like, I feel like when we're 18, like, the world hasn't hit us yet, you know? And so I had the same, like, I was like, I'm gonna be married at 22. Like, I thought the same thing. And I know throughout, after 18, like, obviously I'm 27 and my dog is my whole wide world. And that's as far as I can see
Yes.
her. I love her so much. Every single night I tell her she's my princess and I love her with my whole heart and soul, and we go to sleep together. But I wouldn't have it any other way at this time in my life. But I felt the same way. And I think it's because that's what society makes you believe is what will make you successful is if you're married, you have kids in an appropriate timeline, aka 22 to 25. Um, but I can still remember like at one point I was like, I want 10, 15 kids. And now I'm like, I am terrified to birth a child. But I know at that time I also was at a phase where I was like, I don't want kids. And then when I was in my relationship, I remember one time when I was getting ready to go into grad school, I was like, I want a kid within a year. What? Like, I am so happy that that did not happen because now that I think about it and I'm like being self-aware, it wasn't that I wanted a kid. It was my way of thinking that I could tie this person down and have that commitment to me. It wasn't the kid at all. But going through this and like you said, going through heartbreak or grief and loss, whatever it is, you start to kind of like be like, oh, like, it's almost like a new journey or whatever it is. And so I think it really has made me like turn inward and make me really be like, what do I want? Not what is the world telling me that I should be at this moment, but what do I want? And like today, I've done nothing. And at one point, I was like, oh, I feel like I should be doing something. And then I'm like, no, I'm cool. I've been laying on the couch, chilling, and that's okay. It's okay to have those days, I don't care. But I think like so often because I'm 27 or whatever, it should be like, well, you should like be trying to meet someone. Like, don't you want to meet someone? And like sometimes I do, but then I'm like, well, I think it's just because I'm lonely. But do I really want that right now? And I tell all my friends, like, I'm not ready to date right now. Like, I don't I don't want to project any of my past grievances on a new person, but also like it was a lot. Like relationships are a lot of work and effort, and I'm slowly trying to learn how to put all of that into me. And I haven't even learned how to give myself all of this effort. So why it's easier I think to give other people all of this love and effort than it is to give yourself. So before I jump right back into giving it to someone else, I want to learn how to give it all to me and not feel uncomfortable giving it to me because I've noticed like if I do stuff for myself, it is almost like a weird feeling. Does that make sense? And so like I want to get used to doing whatever I want to do and being like, yeah, that's what I did. What's wrong with that? So,
Well,
yeah.
cultivating this like sense of safety and security within yourself and not feeling like you have to seek that externally from somebody else, I think is like what it essentially boils down to. Like whether you choose to do nothing or, we were talking yesterday. Was it yesterday? I don't remember. Was it yesterday? I don't know. You were like,
Talking about
yeah, like I'm buying, I'm getting pizza and I'm doing like a movie night and like treating myself, and you're like,
by
yeah,
myself.
yeah, and you're like, yeah, I guess I can do that. I'm like, yeah, you can do that. uh,
Mhm.
and so it's finding that strength in yourself and that independence, and then being able to um, allow somebody else to enter into your world and you entering into theirs, and like how do we
But still having your own world.
right, right.
I think that's the biggest thing for me is identifying my world and maintaining it.
Well, it's so
Because
easy to get swept up in somebody else's.
yeah, because well, one, I need to re-identify my world, and then obviously I'll need to maintain it. But it's like I don't know why it's such a weird thing to like do something for yourself, or like why is it so like almost like taboo of like yeah, I'm gonna stay in and just have a movie night with myself and not have to have someone there or go out and cater to someone else. Or it's almost like if you do something by yourself, it's not a productive thing. Does that make sense?
Well, there's not as much value in it as if you're doing it with somebody else. And
Yeah.
I think again it goes back to like this like culture of particularly I think as women more so than men, because I don't think men get this judgment or criticism as much as like a woman does, of like, yeah, like I took myself on a date, and you're like, you did what? Like,
Mhm.
shouldn't you like go find a man or something, or person, or
Mm.
whoever you identify or as
Yeah,
that?
because we're told for the longest that our job is to grow up and find someone and cater and serve to them. And when is it we get cater and served to? Like,
Well, not only that, but like the coupling process in general. You know, even as kids, it's like we get asked like, "Oh, well, who do you have a crush on at school?" I ain't got a crush on nobody. I'm trying to be line leader. Like I gotta do what I gotta do. Like ain't nobody trying to be in a couple, but that we constantly get conditioned of like, I need to find somebody. I need to find
mhm.
somebody. I have to be with somebody in order to be successful. Like we I think our generation more so than like the younger ones is, you know, we still get conditioned that way of like, well, you need to be with a person, and if you're not, then something is like wrong, or if you have been alone for a significant amount of time, then something's wrong with you. You know, it's like you're a spinster all over again.
Yeah, I've been watching Sex in the City. That's what I've been doing today. And Miranda, the one who just
I've
sees.
never seen it.
Okay, well, I believe it's Miranda, the blonde one. I'm like, that's who I want to be. Like, she just hooks up with random dudes all the time, but she does not commit. She does not get in a relationship. And just right now, again, like I recently got a new roommate and we'll go back and forth. And he's like, oh my gosh, stop. Not every person is your ex. And I'm like, I know this, but I also am aware that I'm still projecting. And that's why I know I don't want to be in a new relationship right now because I am being like, I I'm just in this extreme of like I'm not giving up nothing and yeah.
Yes, Carly went from one extreme to the other. She's like, I can't do this, or this person does this, or like, nope, see you later, bye. So I think
And
you learn the middle ground here.
I'm learning the middle ground. I'm not there yet, but 100%. And I think you like I did go from one extreme. I went from one extreme of literally not giving myself any self-care and constantly making sure someone was all right and putting my feelings aside to make sure that they were okay to now I'm at this extreme of like I'm sorry if it hurts your feelings, but I need to put myself first and I'm going to do what I want to do. And it'll be like the most minor things. But if a guy says something that just is just like doesn't sit right with me and it's something that could be like negotiable, but like on my end, I'm like, if he thinks like that, absolutely not. And I know that that's not like healthy, but that's why I'm like, bless you. I'm like, just gonna give it some time. It's not been that long.
I don't think it's not healthy. It's just that's where your mindset is at right now. You're like, work, like not boy bye, like this isn't happening sort of thing. And I think as you heal from like the trauma, that dies down a lot, and you're like, oh, like this is okay, because I imagine now it's very triggering for you, like if somebody like speaks a certain way or has like a certain thing, then it's ultimately like you're transported back into the relationship with your ex. And so it's like discerning like, no, somebody else can do this, and we can have a conversation about it and come to a compromise, and it can be a point of connection instead of like, now I have to give myself up in order to be
Mm-hmm.
with you sort of thing.
Oh, for sure. But yeah, that's the biggest thing of like, no way, honey.
Get out of here with that. I feel like there was something I was gonna say earlier, and now I have no recollection of what it was.
Well, I would just like to say that I know that we kind of derailed on this episode, but I think that it was in a good way in the sense of like religion can be so many things to so many people. It doesn't have to be Catholic, Christian, Muslim. It could be, and this might sound crazy, but it could be like your mental health, your healing journey. Like that can be someone's religion. To me, the way that I see religion is like something that you practice and you put like you, I don't know, because it's gonna sound weird. Like I say, like you practice, you put time into, because that can be like a hobby and everything too. But like just having like that faith and that kind of stuff, I think that religion can be such a broad term, and it can just mean so much. Like again, going back to me and you, like I feel like I can only speak for myself again, but just being a good person. But I feel like that's kind of how you are. And like this might sound crazy, but I feel like you're almost like therapy and stuff is like a religion, like the belief in like mental health and equality. And I might be derailing right now and sound so crazy, but it just to me sound like that can be someone's belief. Like I believe that we should take more care of our mental health, and that's what I'm passionate about, and that's like my faith, and I'm going to focus on that. And that's why like maybe some of these Bible verses mean something to me, and I'm going to be a good person, and the moon is lining up this week and I'm just going off. But this is, I just feel like I can't get my thoughts into, but you know what I mean?
I understand what you're saying. Let me take a stab at it with my therapy skills here
Okay.
and summarize what you're talking about.
Do it.
So I think what you're trying to say is that somebody's like value system and their core beliefs and whatever they put their energy into and allows that to kind of guide them is like whatever religion, whether it's like therapy. And I identify with that because I think when I talked about in the last episode with the chakras and why I gravitated so much to like the energies was because I was already doing that from a clinical perspective in therapy. And so that gave me this other element, like this energetic, spiritual element. And I was like, yes, this makes so much sense because I already do this from a more scientific, clinical perspective. So this gives me a greater sense of self to believe in. And so that I can understand, or just, even if I didn't have that, like my beliefs in therapy and what I do as a therapist align with my values, align with my belief system. And so that is my form. It can be like a form of religion for me because that who I am. And this actually, I think this kind of like sums it up really, really well is I remember my first day of graduate school. I wanted to like know my professors and like get really close to them. So I was like, what kind of questions can I ask and like show that I'm like, a teacher's pet or whatever I am. So I can remember that I went up to one of my professors and I said, how do you turn it off? How do you turn off your therapist mode and go back into who you are as a person? And he looked at me and he was like, you don't. You become that person. And at first I was like, okay, whatever, bye, like, sure, whatever you mean. And now I understand, and it has come full circle because who I am as a therapist is who I am to my core, and I don't get to shut it off at all. I can shut off the clinical skills and the active listening to a degree. Like I don't, when you and I talk, I don't sit there, I'm not like, well, Karlie, I think you need a blah, 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 blah. Yeah. I can shut that part off, but the insight and the awareness and the listening and all of that, that's already within me and part of me. Now I just know how to organize it and do it in a ethical manner that abides by like the laws and rules that Florida has set for us. But it becomes part of us instead of like, I have to do this in order to be a good person, or I have to do this because X, Y, or Z says I need to in order to live a successful life or to enter into an afterlife or what have you. But it's more so like in this moment, this feels genuine for me and whatever I'm putting my energy into. Because I mean, yoga can be a form of like religion for people, and just being able to kind of identify it from that perspective. So I understand like where you're coming from of like these elements of us and just finding where our energy lies, like your career, that could be like a form of religion if it feels like genuine and you get like this fulfillment from it. Because I think that's what people take away from, like if they go to church or like an organized religion, they get something from it. They feel connected, they feel this higher power, they feel this sense of self, they feel this serene, calm, tranquil peace, what have you. And so we can cultivate that in other areas. It doesn't necessarily have to be organized religion.
Yeah, 100%. And that's what I think is like when I think about my mom and practicing like Catholicism, it's who she is to the core, like it's genuine for her, and she truly enjoys going. She never feels like she has to go and do this. Like, and I know whenever she gets done, she always says that she just feels so much better. And I think that's what's important. And like you said, it's just like what it is that I think religion is a part of who you are in the core. It's a part of your core element, and you determine what that is for you. And so it's different for everyone, but I think it's who you are in your core. Like, some people really value family, and some people it's not a huge thing for them. Not that they don't care about their family, but it's not like to a core. Like for me, family will always be a core element for me, whether and things like that. And what I learned in like my therapy is like when you find a partner, there are certain things that you guys can compromise and negotiate on, but your core values for the most part need to line up. Because if they don't, that's something that you cannot change. That is who you are. You cannot change, you know, being a family person. I mean, you can, but it's going to catch up with you, and it's not gonna sit right. So I think religion, like certain things like that, is a core value, and you just have to determine what it is.
Agreed. Are y'all
So
feeling full yet? I just use the word y'all.
I do all the time.
I don't. I remember when we moved to Florida, that was the one thing that we were just like, y'all. Why does everybody say y'all here? And I was like, ooh. And I just use y'all. I must be a Floridian
Officially a Floridian.
now. It's a sad day in history.
I do because it's easier. How y'all feeling tonight, y'all?
Are you all feeling full yet?
Are you?
Are you? If not, consider this. I always put my finger up when we do.
And you always do an accent. You always do an accent.
I gotta get better with my accents. We want to know what religion or spirituality like means to you. Is it organized? Is it your career? Is it your belief system and your core values? What does religion or spirituality mean to you? Let us know.
And tell me if you think that I made sense. Validate me, please. No, no, but for real, we want to hear what it does mean to you, because it means something different to everybody, I feel like.
Absolutely.
Even if you both practice Christianity, your religion can be different from this other person. So that's why we're both very curious as to what that is.
So comment below, let us know, follow and like us on Facebook page at Emotionful Podcast, comment on our Facebook page, follow us on Instagram at Emotionful Pod, check out our Patreon. We want to shout out to our patrons.
Kevin Gallagher, Therese Gallagher, Joe and Stewart.
Thank you all for your continued support. If you want to be a patron, check out our Patreon account so you can figure out how to do that. But don't forget to like and subscribe to this video. As always, we appreciate all of your support and encouragement for what we do. And see you next week.
Thanks for listening. Yeah, thanks for listening. And that's all for now, folks.
Goodbye.
Bye.